If you would like to learn how to make this fun fidget football, then please be sure to keep watching. Hello and welcome to Cats Me Wow Designs. I'm so excited to share this video with you today on how to make a crochet football fidget. So let's take a look. So you are going to start with your crochet hook. For this, I'm using a 3.5 millimeter hook. Right now for this, I'm preferring the inline crochet hook style. You can also choose a bigger size, but mostly the shaft here needs to be small enough so that you can fit your bead. You also need yarn. If you want a traditional football, you can do brown, but for high contrast, I'm using this pink color today. You also need a stitch marker because we are going to be working in a round. And if you don't have a stitch marker, you can even use a bobby pin. You need some scissors, some pony beads. These are the 9 millimeter pony beads, and a yarn needle. So without further ado, let's get started. To begin, we are going to start with a magic circle or magic ring. And so this is my method of doing the magic ring, but if you have a different way that's better, you can do it that way. Also, because I am left-handed, this will be a left-handed tutorial. So once you have your ring, I am going to chain one just to make the ring a little bit more stable. And we are going to start by putting 7 single crochets into this ring. So you're going to take your hook and go into the ring, pick up a loop. You have 2 loops now on, so you need to yarn over and then pull through 2 loops. So that is our first single crochet, and you want to continue to do that until you have 7 single crochets in the ring. And you don't have to worry about how big your ring is, because after we're done with this row, we are actually going to close it. So now that we have all 7 single crochets, we are going to take our tail and we are going to pull that to tighten up that ring. Now we are going to be working in the single crochets that we just made. So we want to insert our hook through those 2 loops of the first single crochet, and you want to make sure that your tail is over that area because we're going to weave it in as we go. So we're going to pull up a loop, and this is the reason why you want to make sure that your original single crochets are not too tight, because it can be kind of difficult. So now we have 2 loops, so now we need to make 1 single crochet, and we're actually going to do 2 single crochets in each stitch around, or we're going to basically do an increase. So once you get the first 2 stitches done, then you want to take your stitch marker and put it in that second stitch or the first stitch for this round. You can choose to lock the stitch marker if you want, but it's not necessary. So now, as I mentioned, you're going to put 2 more single crochets in each stitch around. You will have a total of 14 stitches when you are done. So be sure to tell me in the comments which football team you are rooting for the Super Bowl. I'm really curious to find out. I am not a sports person myself, and so I'm just really curious about everybody else's opinion. Also, be sure to let me know who your favorite team is, even if they didn't make it to the Super Bowl this year. So now as we are coming to the end of this row, as you can see, we have a hole starting to reopen in the center, so you can press your thumb and pull the yarn. Now, you just want to make sure that you pull it enough to close it, but not enough that it will break. So here we see we have that nice and closed. And so now we need to move on to row 3. So for row 3, we're going to start by taking out our stitch marker so we can work into that first stitch and put 1 single crochet in that first stitch before replacing our stitch marker. And now we need to put one single crochet into each of the stitches around. While you work, you want to continue to weave that tail in. And now that we are already past the second row and into the third row, the center hole should not come open again, but that is something that you will want to keep your eye on just in case. I'm going to speed up this row a little bit since it's nothing but single crochets, and then I will see you for row 4. When you are done with that row, you can take out your stitch marker, and we are going to put one single crochet into that first stitch before replacing our stitch marker. And then we are going to put 2 single crochets into the next stitch, and we are going to repeat that all around. And at the end of row 4, you should have 21 stitches. Now, something that I have noticed is that, at least for me, I like to work from the inside out. And so as I do this, you will see me kind of popping it the opposite direction. So that way I am crocheting from the outside. And that is important for later on when we start crocheting and adding the beads. So we just want to keep doing the one single crochet and then the increase in the second stitch all the way around. And I will see you for rows 6 through 8. So now for the next 3 rows, that is row 5 through 7, you are just going to put one single crochet into each stitch around. I am going to go ahead and do a little bit of video editing magic and skip ahead, but if you need to, go ahead and pause the video here until you get your 3 rounds. As you continue to do these rows of single crochet, it will start to develop more of that bowl shape, and that is where you especially want to make sure that you have the correct side flipped out so that way the beads show up properly. Row 8 is another increase row, and so we are going to start by taking out our stitch marker, and we need to put one single crochet in the first 2 stitches, and then we need to do an increase. So that is one single crochet, 2 single crochets, and now an increase. So you need to do 2 single crochets into that third stitch, and you need to repeat that all the way around. When you're done, you should have 28 stitches. So now for row 9, we are going to complete one single crochet in each of the stitches around. And so keep in mind that there should be a total of 28 stitches in this row. And the next row is where things start to get a little interesting. So for row 10, we are going to start with a bead single crochet. So go ahead and bring over your pony beads and pick a color that you like. I'm going to use this dark pink color. And so first, let's remove that stitch marker. So as you see, we have one loop on the hook. So what we are going to do is we're going to start by picking up our bead and putting it onto the shaft of the crochet hook. And that's why it's so important to test your beads before you start. You're going to insert your hook into the next stitch, just like that, both loops. Pull up a loop like you would a typical single crochet. Then you're going to pinch the bead and use the hook part to pull that loop through the bead. So now the bead is on the project, not your hook. Yarn over and pull through those two loops. And you're going to do this bead single crochet for the first 3 stitches. So we have one loop, add the bead onto the hook, put the hook through, pull up a loop, pull that loop through the bead, yarn over, and pull through 2 loops. So now we need to do that one more time for this first row, and this is going to start the fidget part and the stitching. Don't forget to put your stitch marker back in that first bead stitch. It can be a little tricky to get it in there. And then you are simply going to put one single crochet into the rest of the stitches of the round. This particular row is important to remember because we are going to repeat the same row several times, alternating between this row and the next one. So now for row 11, we're going to take out our stitch marker and we are going to put just a regular single crochet into that first stitch or the first one that has the bead. So you want to go through and do that. Go ahead and put your stitch marker back in. And for the second stitch, we are going to do another bead single crochet. This skill is pretty much universal for doing all of the fidget toys. So once you get this down, then you should be good to create any pattern. And just like before, all of the rest of the stitches of the row, we are going to do one single crochet in each stitch around. Now you are going to repeat the same 2 rows, row 12 through row 18. And you want to make sure that you start the stitching and end the stitching with row number 10, the one that has the 3 beads. And if you want to do more, you can just continue repeating these rows. But it seems like for a good amount of body, and so that doesn't get too big, those are the recommended rows for the repeating. I am going to put those instructions here on the screen for you to see, and I will meet you back for row number 19. So for row 19, we are going to put one single crochet into each of the stitches around. Congratulations, you have completed the hardest part of this project with those beads. So now we are basically going to do the reverse order of the rows that we had before the beads, and we should be done with this pretty soon. Since this is just one single crochet in each stitch round, I'm going to fast forward a little bit until we reach row 20. For row 20, we are going to start by taking out our stitch marker, and we want to put one single crochet into that first stitch before replacing the stitch marker. We want to put one single crochet into the next stitch, and then we want to decrease. So to decrease, you're going to insert your hook through the next stitch, pull up a loop, insert your hook into the stitch after that without finishing the first one, pull up another loop, and you should have 3 loops on your hook. Then you want to yarn over and pull through all 3 loops, and you have just completed a single crochet decrease. So we are going to continue that around. So one single crochet in the first 2 stitches and then a decrease. When you reach the end of the round, then there will be one stitch that is left over, in which case you want to just put one single crochet into that last stitch. When you're done with this, you want to make sure to count your stitches. There should be a total of 21 stitches. For rows 21, 22, and 23, you want to put one single crochet into each of the stitches around, just like we did when we first started. So because this is just simply single crochets, I am going to go ahead and do that off camera, and just be sure that you move and replace your stitch marker when needed. That's a super easy way to keep track of these rounds. When you are done with row 23, this is where I chose to start stuffing my football. You can use a variety of different things. I'm using this polyfill. I had some left over from some other projects, as well as some of the other fidget toys that I have made in the past. But if you do not have any of this fiber fill, you can use yarn scraps from other projects. You can use fabric scraps, even just whatever you have on hand. If you do use those other scraps, then you're also being eco-friendly, which I can 100% get behind. So you just want to stuff it enough so that it is not in the way of the row that you are currently working on, because if it's overstuffed, then you will actually be able to pull some of the polyfill out as you crochet. So now for row 24, we are going to put one single crochet into that first stitch, and then the next one we are going to do a decrease, and you are going to repeat this pattern all the way around. So we have our first single crochet and then a decrease, our one single crochet, one single crochet and decrease, and you should come out to the perfect number of stitches at the end. So once you finish that row, starting with row 25, you are going to put one single crochet in each of the stitches around. And as a reminder, at the end of this stitch, you should have 14 stitches. After I am done with that row, I am going to add just a little bit more fiber fill into the football. I'm still not overstuffing it at all because I do have one more round of crochets to do. So now that I've added a little bit more stuff in there, we need to do a decrease in every stitch around. And if you notice, I am deciding to put my stitch marker back in. This helps me to know when the end of the row is, so that way I don't accidentally create more stitches than there needs to be. Now, depending on how this worked out, you may either have a leftover stitch. If that's the case, then you can do a decrease with the first stitch of the row. However, for me, I found that I had an even number of stitches, and so I did not have to do that. But since these rows are so short, it is easy to get into these spaces. So there's two more spaces there. And just make sure when you're using these that you don't accidentally hook your stitch marker like I did. Okay. So now that we are done with the crocheting part, now we're going to use the small area that's left and we are going to stuff it until it is firm. So I'm going to do that off camera and then I will see you. So after you get it just how you like it, then you want to take and cut a really long tail. So take your scissors and cut off the yarn. You're going to grab the loop and you're going to pull so that way it can't unravel anymore. Now you can grab your yarn needle. I prefer this size. It is smaller in length, but also the circumference is much smaller too, so that way I can get into my tighter stitches than if I used a bigger yarn needle. And so we're just going to start, we're going to figure out which way we're going and then just weave in and out of those final stitches. I do apologize, I did not get it very well into the camera, but we're kind of doing like a drawstring motion, so just weaving in and out. And then you want to pull it tight. So here we have our football shape. Now to finish this off, we want to make sure that's tight. And then we are going to take our yarn and we are going to weave it through the parts that we've already crocheted to make it secure. So we're kind of hiding it in amongst the stitches. Now my recommendation for you is to go a minimum of 3 directions. This will lock it in place so that it can't move, but you can always do more than that. You do not have to weave the entire tail in. So here I am going a different direction, and because my stitches are kind of tight, it is a little hard even with the smaller needle to get the yarn through. So now we're going to go back the way we came. And make sure that it's everything that we are looking for. I'm going to do one more pass just to make sure. Then we're going to pull it tight, grab our scissors, clip the tail off there. And we are done with our football. It is great for football lovers. And if you don't like football like me, you can crochet this during the game and then give it to your favorite football lover. It's great for rolling the beads. You can squeeze it if the game is extra, nail bitey, or just throw it around. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!